This episode continues, where Dr. Strano Amore finished with his comments, and turned the balance of the time to Dr. Abscondam, the new physicist on the team.
Hello everyone. I would like to start tonight by saying that I am deeply honored to be a part of such an amazing project with such remarkable colleagues. For all of my adult life, I have been obsessed with the mysteries and the oddities that come with the study of the very small. Physics with the everyday world seems so instinctive, and the rules can almost seem like common sense. Once you get to the very small, all sense of normalcy is thrown out the window very quickly. The forces that we take for granted, like placing your hand on a desk or throwing a ball, are all the things we can do, thanks to other forces, which for a long time, humanity knew little or nothing about. By observing interactions of the limits of our abilities, we were able to create theories, describe new forces, and create predictions about the forces behind both what we observe and what is too small or difficult to accurately record or observe. Keeping this in mind, from an early age, I was reminded by teachers that I trust that even our best theories are based on detailed interactions and calculations that push the bleeding edge of what we are capable of. There is always the possibility of new data revolutionizing our ideas of what makes the physical world as we know it run. While we know a decent amount about gravity, electromagnetism, and to a decent extent, strong and weak forces, what puzzled me is why matter at the smallest level seems to vanish, then reappear, remembering exactly where it was before. If the particle was truly gone, then how could it pop back in place where it was, and resume doing the same thing? If something is truly gone, then it is gone. By virtue of the fact that the memory remains to keep it the exact place it was, in the atom or molecule it is a part of, then by logic, it cannot be truly gone. If it was, there would be nothing to keep it in place, returning time after time. There had to be forces controlling this, and a place that this vanished particle would have gone to. Quantum entanglement puzzled me in a very similar way as well. In thinking about this, I remembered how air seemed so mysterious to early humanity. Though it cannot be seen, its effects can easily be both felt and measured. I also remembered that our current theories are based upon the ability to measure what we see on the very small level. If it is gone, then it must not exist. In one way of thinking, a more correct way of thinking would be to realize that at a moment where the particle seems to vanish, we can just simply tell that at the moment it is not interacting in any way that we can measure. That does not mean it is gone, just that we cannot measure it. It is not interacting with any particle that we know about in the measurable world around us. To make a very long story short and cut out massive amounts of data and research, I discovered that the missing particle is not actually missing at all, but rather just not interacting with those we see. As weird as things seem so far, that is where this topic gets exponentially more strange. It turns out that the stuff that forms even the smallest particles seems to be acting like some form of energy itself, not like the electricity that comes from the flow of electrons that we can so easily measure, but an energy nonetheless. All matter at the smallest level is not just a really small solid. We cannot just take a grain of sand and keep cutting it in half and then get a very, very small solid particle. At that size, it is a type of energy that fluctuates in a wave, as it continually goes through a type of cycle, where it is constantly fluctuating through the entire range of its natural energy levels. In a very similar manner to ocean waves, or waves in electricity. Many things in nature fluctuate on a cycle. It creates stability, where otherwise instability could reign. In this area too, the particles come back and forth between where we perceive them, and when we do not. I know I am skipping around a lot here, but the obvious question is if everything is constantly going in and out of existence as we know it, then why is it just the odd particle that here and there seems to vanish? The answer to that is somewhat because we are missing quite a large part of what is going on, due to our lack of ability to measure our world correctly. The answer why we missed this for so long is that for some reason, most particles tend to sync up and go back and forth in their wave at much the same time. The random particles that appear to us to vanish are only just somewhat out of sync from the rest of the others. All of our measurement equipment is going in and out of phase at the same rate, so it does not catch it either. And not knowing or suspecting that we only exist for a fraction of the time that we think we do also means that we never thought to make theories to describe what we never guessed could be happening. Everything that we're made of is constantly going in and out of existence at a very, very rapid pace, and all at largely the same time. So the next question is, that if all of the particles that make the existence that we know of are going in and out of the world that we interact with, then what should they do when they're not here? The answer to that, he's just as weird as any that came before it. They are going in and out of phase, at their other energy levels, just as quickly as they go through ours. At each phase of their journey, they only appear to interact with particles that are on the same energy phase. This is why we cannot see or interact with the particles that we can observe vanishing. They just do not interact. So these phases where the very smallest matter goes between are separated both by a very small amount of time and by the fact that the particles themselves just do not interact with any but those at the same energy level for some reason. To bring this discussion back to what it means to us in this project, when the particles that make us all up are out of our phase, they are in phase at a different energy level. They too make up atoms, molecules, and entire worlds that we cannot see or interact with. The worlds are separated, both by minute differences in time, and by particles that just do not like interacting with each other. So what do we know then about the other worlds that our matter also helps to create? First and foremost, that they're the exact same number of particles, and that they do tend to interact in the same ways with each other at all energy levels. This means that any world that would be made up of the particles that we share must be the exact same mass, and very likely have a remarkably similar distribution between elements that we have.
So to dumb this down a little, are you saying that there are other dimensions?
Yes, you can say that. Every dimension must have the same mass, and probably the same element distribution. They would have the same forces, but unlike science fiction, there would not be unlimited worlds, nor would there be other versions of you, having likely the same elements, and having been around for the same amount of time as our dimension. They would have gone through an evolution that could vary either by only a small amount, or possibly a great big deal from us. If you can see that the second planet from our sun had a very similar distribution of elements at its inception, that did not ensure that it turned out anything like our planet. It is as uninhabitable as can be imagined, even though it arguably could be just within the habitable zone around our sun. But the other worlds that share the atoms that we have would be much more similar to our world than any other planet we know about. They are the single most promising place to look for a habitable world to go to, other than our own. The only problem is that we're just beginning to be able to confirm their existence, and to map at what frequency levels they naturally occur on. There are only a limited number of them, and getting us to them will be quite difficult. Given the fact that we are trying to live forever, even if this is hard, it is just a matter of time before we do get the ability to go to one of these sister worlds. Also, given the extreme lengths of time it would take to travel to other stars, and the possibility of either finding inhospitable planets, or planets with races that could wipe us all out, I think finishing this technology would grant us the best possibility of being able to move to a new world. Once we can go between dimensions, there would be zero travel time, and multiple worlds that can house us in the exact same gravity and distribution of heat and elements as we have evolved to live in. Through the many long years of evolution, life here has adapted to. In short, this discovery is huge. We now have confirmed that there are multiple dimensions sharing the space we already inhabit, and that there are almost certainly multiple places for us to escape to. What's more, due to the quick thinking and assistance of the leadership of this group, I was able to wipe out records of the discoveries made at my previous employer, and leave some falsified data to misdirect. We are the only ones that know about this, and, above all else, for all of our safety, this cannot get out to others. No matter how long it takes, this will be the shortest, most promising route to our collective freedom, in a brand new world, almost exactly like our own. We cannot travel outward. We must move quietly here, among the unseen worlds we now know exist right here. Now, I would like to turn the time back over to the chairman.
Thanks for all those who participated in sharing the progress we have made and bringing us all up to speed with this endeavor. We will continue to work together in secret to finish this project and ensure that each and every one of us will be included in this venture. United we succeed, or united we fail and die. The scientists will be first here, not the rich or the powerful. We cannot bring the death and destruction to the eternities that we have here. I think that will be sufficient motivation for us all to work as hard as we can, and as secretly as we can. Please do not talk with even your husband or wife about this. We do plan to be able to take them too, but we cannot have them knowing that, until the time is right. We are now adjourned. Please forward all questions to the appropriate department chairs.
And with that, the meeting that started all of the madness that was to follow, was over. Looking back on it, we had no idea of how young, or naive we were. This brave, daring, and possibly foolish plan we had, would end up taking us all to a journey that we never would have been able to imagine. We certainly were not ready for the challenges to come. But there were none else that could help us at that time. We had no choice but to fail or fly, on our ability and determination alone. The end of episode 2. Please stay tuned for more.